Hello and welcome to the Wild Tales podcast. I am your host, Mike Bona. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. You picked a good one. I am super excited about today's show. I'm thrilled that today's guest agreed to be on my podcast. It's someone I grew up watching and idolizing. Today's guest is Julie Scardina. For years, I admired her from my couch. She brought incredible animals onto national television shows, especially during her appearances on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, who I believe she was his number one, or at least one of his most frequent guests on the Tonight Show during his stint as the host. Julie had the job I dreamed about. She got to travel the world, work with amazing animals, and inspire people to care about wildlife. So you could imagine how lucky I feel to now be talking to her on my own podcast. Julie's career as an animal ambassador for SeaWorld and Busch Gardens has made her a household name in conservation. In this episode, we dive into her latest project. She's working with Mission Wildlife and promoting an event that's happening May 9th down in San Diego, working with Save the Elephants, and they're showing a new documentary that is entitled A Life Among Elephants, and it's the story of Dr. Iain Douglas-Hamilton and his career dating back to the 60s, living and working in Africa, trying to save the African elephant. So she wants, if you're in the San Diego area on May 9th or anywhere in Southern California, you can drive down there. I will have a link in the show notes where you can get tickets. This will be an unbelievable event. Save the Elephants and Iain Douglas-Hamilton will be there. Julie will be there. It sounds like an amazing screening of an incredible documentary. I recommend everyone go. So, this is something she's very passionate about. This will explain. The show goes into what it was like for Iain working to protect elephants in the wild and why awareness and education are more important than ever. So she also talks about how to inspire the next generation of animal lovers and conservationists and what keeps her passionate about a lifetime of advocacy. I truly love this conversation. So, hey, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here's my truly special guest for today's episode, Julie Scardina.
Where are you from, Mike? Where do you live?
I am in Los Angeles right now. I work at the zoo.
Oh, okay.
I'm originally from Paso Robles. So, in fact, I got my start working with animals in high school. I got to volunteer with Zoo to You. I believe you know David Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Very good friends. Yeah.
Yes. So he kind of guided my path to where I am today.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, so yeah, I mean, if you're in LA, I don't, again, I'm assuming your listeners are probably from all over, but it's not that far to come down for the event. So that'll definitely help if we get a few folks.
Certainly. All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to have you. I first heard about you probably when, not to age you or me, but when I was in high school, and I would watch you, I think probably every appearance on Jay Leno. Because I was an animal guy. I loved animals. So whenever there was animals on the Tonight Show, I'd usually past my bedtime, so I'd record it on my VHS.
Hey, that's how I sometimes watched it.
And watch back later. And I was so envious. You had the job I wanted. I wanted to do that. That seemed like the best job in the world.
Yeah, well, I tell you, there were at least 3 aspects of being the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens animal ambassador that I will forever treasure. One was being on the board of the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens Conservation Fund, and we gave away $1 million a year to different projects all around the world. And, we were part of that team that got to decide, which, was definitely difficult because we read 300 plus applications every year. And oh my gosh, it gave me the education about conservation of a lifetime reading all those applications. But the second thing being able to travel all around the world with Jack Hanna often, and then also doing Shamu TV episodes, things like that. And then third, the one that you mentioned, which is being able to do the segments on TV for a variety of different shows, and probably the Tonight Show being the most fun of them all, and hopefully reached as many people as we could possibly reach there. So that's very gratifying to hear that you enjoyed it, and hopefully we're motivated by it.
It reached me, certainly, and I definitely tried to follow the same path. I went through to the same school as you did. We went to Moore Park College. We're both graduates of the teaching zoo there. In fact, I was there yesterday. They had their annual spring spectacular, and I was talking to Gary Wilson, a former guest on the podcast, about you, and he always has nice things to say.
Well, Gary is the best. Gary and Cindy, lifelong friends after we met in the program, because many people don't realize Gary went through the program before teaching the program, and we were in the same class. So it was fantastic. Gary was the only male basically in that class. So yeah, he was surrounded by women, which I'm sure he didn't mind at all. But his girlfriend, fiance, and wife was a part of that program as well. So we all loved her as well.
Oh, Cindy is fantastic. We absolutely love her. I'm sure it was so hard for Gary in those times being surrounded by women, although I could see the challenges as well. So,
No, he's a great guy. He's just a wonderful guy. So yeah, great to know that you progressed through that program, and really are doing some wonderful work now, influencing a lot of people about a lot of things. But I am particularly interested in wildlife conservation. And, those are my main messages, especially these days.
same. Yeah, my specialty is working with giraffes, and I've gotten to work with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. I've gotten to do some traveling around the world. I'm wearing my GCF shirt now.
Mm.
I've talked about it before with other guests, but last year I got to help with a translocation, moving Angolan giraffes up to Angola from Namibia, which was life-changing. Just
Yeah, that was
project
with
I got to work on.
Julian and Stephanie.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know everyone.
Well, hey, like I said, I've been around a long time. No, like you said, I've been around a long time.
It's amazing, yeah. And also, I've had the privilege of crossing paths with you a couple of times. I've met Jack Hanna and all the people I've looked up to and wanted to follow in their career steps. And although I've not made it on the Tonight Show yet, I'm happy where my little niche that I'm filling here and getting to talk to people and preach conservation.
That's
So
awesome. That's
let's
awesome.
so you, oh my goodness, talking about your career before uh Jay Leno and this Night Show and traveling the world. Had to work with SeaWorld, and you were a whale trainer and dolphins. You've had such a long, amazing career with several different animals, and I asked you to tell me a story. I don't know how you pick a story you want to talk about with
Well,
animals.
okay, well, it's interesting because you just said pick a story, and I also am promoting our Save the Elephants event on May 9th here at the San Diego Natural History Museum. And since it's about elephants and it's about the life of Iain Douglas-Hamilton, my story was actually going to be about watching elephants in the wild, but maybe we'll get back to that. It certainly was a privilege to be able to work, especially killer whales, kind of, I don't want to say, but back in the day when we could get in the water with them. It was so special, so amazing. They're such incredible animals and so intelligent that I just consider it probably the largest privilege of my life to have been able to develop relationships that were so built on the trust that you had to have when you got into the water with those animals. And when I say trust, I mean it goes both ways. Obviously, they needed to know that they could trust us, and not in the fact that we would hurt them. We couldn't hurt them, but the fact that we would make good decisions, and that we knew who each individual was, and that we provided the aspects of the things that would motivate them. And it wasn't always food. A lot of times it was their favorite toys, or their favorite social groupings, or just that we were going to be creative and interesting and stimulating and fun in our interactions. so that they would have as good of a time as we would in the interaction. So there was so much to it. And like I said, I always look at things as how much I learned from it. And those definitely were days where, making the detailed decisions and really getting into behavior from the standpoint of it mattered. The decisions that you made mattered every single time that you made one, and those were just wonderful times. So that wasn't really a story, but I went back to my killer whale days in a little bit of memory lane.
Absolutely. It definitely showed during the shows. I remember going to SeaWorld as a kid, and now thinking back of it, I wonder if I actually saw you performed. I guess I would never know, but now, that's one of the first jobs I remember with animals wanting is seeing you guys, the trainers, work with the orcas. Like, I want to be a killer whale trainer at SeaWorld. And then later on, I realized the swim test you have to pass to do that. I'm like, nope, that's not for me. I'm not, I can swim, but I'm not that good of a swimmer.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely you need to be comfortable in the water. If you're not comfortable in the water, that's kind of strike one against you when you're with the killer whales. But
That's right.
nowadays you're not specifically in the water, but it's still, it's you're working around it every day, so it still matters.
That's right. I found a great niche with my land mammals. But anyway, let's talk about, speaking of land mammals, the largest. Let's talk about elephants. What do you have to say about elephants?
Well, after working a majority of my career at SeaWorld, but I was also working at Busch Gardens. So elephants were always I was very much into intelligence, both when I was a kid and I loved just working behavior. Even when I was literally 7 years old, I'd be, training the dog and just seeing that communication that can happen between species was always fascinating to me. And I will say, though, that my love of all creatures, so I look at zoos and aquariums as the gateway drug, right? To that fascinates people, that draws people into learning about animals and loving animals. But when you actually get a chance to go out into the wild and see them, whether they're killer whales in the wild or elephants in the wild, it gives you that next dimension of understanding what they're about. And for elephants particularly, because you can be in them and among them and you can see their entire bodies, it's harder to do that with killer whales. But with elephants, I've been on safari many, many times. My first times were with filming with Jack Hanna. And after the very first time I was able to go with him to South Africa, I was hooked. And I haven't been able to stay away from Africa ever since. And yet, on all these trips, every single interaction with all the different species that you meet is always different. And I guess the story that I was thinking of is one time when I was in Samburu, my favorite place in all of Africa, and we were in a safari vehicle in and amongst herds of elephants kind of coming together. So there was a lot of greeting, a lot of excitement. There were many, many animals. I'd probably say there were over 100 animals. And they were all making their way eventually down to the Owasso Nero River, which is a lifeline river for all animals in the Samburu habitat area there, not just for the national park. Um, so all of this is kind of happening, and we're just taking pictures and filming, and it was just a really neat experience. And all of a sudden, to my right, I hear an elephant, two elephants actually screaming at the top of their lungs. So I'm hearing all this screaming, and I look over and I see two adults running towards our vehicle, by our vehicle. And then all of a sudden I hear, sorry, the dog barking. All of a sudden I hear, not a dog barking, I hear a calf. Gus,
It's fine,
sorry.
Gus. You can be on the show too.
I hear a calf also start vocalizing at a very high pitch. And then you see the calf come out of the larger group of elephants running towards what turns out to be two females. So it then becomes evident that one's mom and the other must be auntie or a younger sibling or daughter or something like that. And they're frantic because apparently they had moved on without realizing that their young calf had been left behind in this social mix that was happening. It's kind of like if it weren't for the fact that I was watching elephants, I would have thought that a mom and her sister were at the shopping center and had gone on into a store and didn't realize that their 4-year-old was left behind somewhere, in the shopping center, and that they were frantic on trying to find him because as soon as these two, the two adults and the calf got together, it was like, oh my gosh, I thought we lost you. The calf was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know where you went, and I was having too much fun. And then they all kind of, said, okay, will you stick with us, whatever. And they turned around and they continued to meander toward the river, which is where they eventually ended up. And it was just so both eye-opening in terms of how human-like, how much in depth these elephants not only emotionally but intellectually go, and how much they reacted just like a human would if they had lost their child as well. So it was one of those times when you just go, oh my gosh, these animals are just so amazing, and I'm again honored and kind of thrilled to be able to see those types of interactions. So I just wanted to share that because it definitely was a very special time.
It's so funny. It's amazing with elephants how you can compare so much of their behaviors to human behavior, how their social structures and the way they interact with each other is so much like us at the mall. We're losing our kids, or your
Absolutely.
sister or aunt yelling at you for some dumb thing you did. I had a similar situation in Namibia last year where we were watching these herds of elephants, and it's kind of funny sometimes you can watch a herd of elephants like in the distance and they slowly start walking towards you, and all of a sudden you're in the midst of this herd of elephants and you just gotta turn the key, turn the car off, and you're on their time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
And
gotta wait for them to pass before you can go.
I could sit there all day. I could sit there all day,
Yeah, it's fascinating, a little intimidating, but it's so much fun to watch. And I think I saw a similar experience where heard a female like near us, like trumpet really loudly, and it is loud, especially when they're close to you. And this juvenile calf came running across the road towards us and by us towards mom or auntie or whoever she was to
So
her.
it sounds like you had the exact same experience, just
I
in a very
was, yeah,
place.
it sounded very similar. Yeah, I guess
I
kids
guess the
get
kids
lost at
will
shopping
always
malls all over Africa.
find out. Darn kids.
Darn, that's fascinating. So, yeah, tell us. So, what is this event? Speaking of elephants, is happening in San Diego, May 9th?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, this is just I can't wait. It's a little over a month away, and Save the Elephants. It was founded by Iain Douglas-Hamilton, who is basically the Jane Goodall of elephants. And he was out there literally 4 or 5 decades ago, the first one to go and find out anything about elephants in the wild, really. Again, just like Jane was out there with chimpanzees, spending her time living among them, the same thing Iain was doing in Tanzania at the time. And so he was discovering things about elephants. He was having adventures. So the film is about his life, and really kind of fantastically, they have footage from the 60s and 70s when he was first out there as a young man, first doing this and meeting Virgo, one of the elephants who was the first one to trust him and, come close, just like Jane had, I don't know if it was Flint or one of these other chimpanzees. And there's footage from that time. And he also met his wife, Oria. They had two young daughters, and actually Saba, who Saba Douglas Hamilton did many series for the BBC. Because again, this spans 40 years or more. So she obviously has a career of her own. She is married to Frank Pope, who is now the CEO of Save the Elephants. So they will both be there to both introduce the film and to do a Q&A afterwards, as well as David Dublin, who is the head of field operations, and he lives, he grew up in the area. So he knows all of these elephants. He's been studying them for 25 years, kind of right alongside Iain, soon as Iain and his family moved to Samburu. So it talks about the 80s, when it was the first time that Iain Douglas-Hamilton was the first one to realize that there was a poaching crisis going on, because he was flying overhead doing censuses and surveying and all of that. And he started noticing all these carcasses. And, luckily, because of that first alert, it became the first worldwide ban on ivory, which, was something that really made a difference at the time. Since it has certainly become more complex and not as easy to basically try to decrease or stop illegal trafficking of ivory, but Iain's been there through it all, and so this film takes us through his beginning life and research through the poaching and culling crises, which is a little bit hard to watch, but total reality and what was happening on the ground at the time, to now where they're really doing everything they can to prevent human wildlife conflict. And they've done a phenomenal job in Samburu and the surrounding areas by committing to community conservation, so that the focus on the locals coexisting with the elephants is really paramount to how these animals and all animals in the wild are going to survive into the future. So it's a really compelling, powerful film. I definitely encourage anybody to go to our website, which is www.missionwildlifeconservation.org. And there's a little bit more of a description of the film, probably not more than I just gave you, but there's also ticket sales on there, and you can either, sign up just to go and watch the film, or there's a VIP reception afterwards in which all of these champions from Kenya will be there, and you'll be able to mingle with them at the VIP reception. We'll have obviously food and drink and things like that. And we have our volunteer team from Mission Wildlife, who we would not be able to exist without, because we are all volunteers putting on the events that we put on, and trying to help wildlife conservation in whatever ways we can.
That sounds great. I hope I can make it. That would be fantastic, especially seeing the footage from the 60s. I mean, not many people were trucking cameras through Africa at that time, so that'd be very special to see.
Yeah.
I've seen Dr. Hamilton give presentations and speak in the past. He's very engaging, very inspirational. I totally recommend anyone going to take a look. I will have the links to Mission Wildlife and Save the Elephants in the show notes, so you guys can click on those links to get your tickets. Hopefully everyone can make it. If you do, shoot me a message, tell me how it was. And if you're listening to this podcast after May 9th, I'll still have those links there so you can learn more information and how you can help and get inspired, and hopefully pass the word and the message to everyone else you know.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Mike. We would love to have some of your listeners attend and let us know. Let us know that's where you heard it.
Yeah, track down Julie. Say hi.
I'll be there.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm tongue-tied. It was a huge pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you taking up your time to entertain my guests and tell a story on my silly little podcast.
It was a pleasure, Mike. Thank you for inviting me, and hopefully we'll meet up either at the LA Zoo or some more park function, or maybe hopefully at the event on May 9th.
I'm around. We're both in the general 5-hour drive 20 away from each other. It's only 30 miles, but it's 5 hours to drive. All right. Well, thank you so much. Take care. Hopefully we can chat again sometime.
You too. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Bye. Thank you, Julie. That was great.
Thank you so much, Julie, for joining the podcast. That was an incredible conversation. Little on the shorter side. I wish it could have gone longer, but her time is valuable, and I appreciate every minute she gave to me. Again, go to the show notes and click on the link for Mission Wildlife. If you're in SoCal and can make it down to San Diego for May 9th, check out the events. Find Julie, say hi, tell her you heard her on the Wild Tales podcast. She would love to hear it. She was a great guest, an amazing person. Our paths have crossed a couple of times during my career, but this was really special to spend some quality time with her and chat and hear stories. And hopefully I get to do it again sometime. So I hope you enjoyed. If you're enjoying Wild Tales, please tell your friends about it. Share online. Follow and visit me on Instagram at WildTalesPod. Send me an email, wildtalespod@gmail.com. That is Tails, Tails. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, stay wild, my friends.